Hi everyone, welcome back into the studio. Well, I'm going to jump right into a wildlife portrait here. This is a mule deer buck that was taken down in Colorado, just a little bit south of here. And really kind of a pretty subject. And I like the blurry mountains back behind and some of the prairie grass, here underneath him and stuff. And so I'm going to do him here. This is a board. Now you can do him up really nice on an 18 by 14 because that's a standard size, easy to find a frame. I'm going to do him, since we make our own frames here, I'm going to do him on a board that's 20 inches this way, 14 inches this way, and I've moved him just off to the side. Now, for those of you that are beginners, because I have a lot of beginners following me here, you can sketch it on, I do a light transfer of lines, and then I do some sketching with it. And like he has some extra horns here, then I'm going to kind of thin out because I don't like the weight of it up at the top. Maybe I'll add it, I don't know. But for those of you that are new and just following along, what I always suggest you do, and I'll put this, for those of you that are members of the channel, I'll put this study reference photo that I got here from Adobe stock, and so we can use it with no problem. I will put that on. Then you can take a piece of this clear plastic here, which is, and I show you the links and stuff like that. All the links for everything are down underneath the description here, okay, of the video. But then you take a marking pin and you can take the pattern off of this plastic. Then you can go set him right where you want him, into the painting here. And I try to make him, when I'm working on something like this, to the same level. Then you can use an artist transfer paper. This is an artist transfer paper. And again, we have it in the links on our Amazon store. And you just transfer it. So I use a permanent marking pin. I trace onto here. And then you can transfer your lines. And then you can go through, like I like to do, and do a little sketching. So sometimes, especially if you're a beginner, I always say there's 3 parts to a painting that you have to concentrate on: the color, the technique, and the line drawing. Drawing is something you should always work on because artists need to know when they're coming out of perspective, when they're drawing their objects. So drawing is something you work on. Color is something you work on. Technique is something you work on. But we want to make nice paintings to begin with. So I always start out my beginners and young painters by transferring a design over, and then what we do is we concentrate on the color and the technique because we know our image is a perfect copy of it. And then you can take that clear plastic, put it back over there if you've come off someplace, and see where you've come off. And then we'll work on drawing as we get going, okay? All right, so it's a good way to learn. All right, so what I have here is the board, and I prepped it with a very light kind of a modeled up coat here of the canvas prep medium. And again, all the links are down in the video description. And I'm ready to go. Now, I'm painting him right away because yesterday or day before yesterday, I did that seascape, okay, which is the latest upload. I did the seascape. And this is the palette I used for the seascape. And what I did was I took my normal palette. This is the normal palette you see me painting with. And what I did is I made this gel extender for it. And I add this to the paint. So all of these colors that you see here have been out since yesterday morning, so over 24 hours. And they all have this gel extender mixed into them, and they're all still absolutely perfect. So after painting that seascape, the painting knife techniques for seascapes, that was my latest video that I did. I had some colors left over, so I thought, I'll just go right in and maybe paint this mule deer with these types of colors. So you can use it acrylic, but I'm going to mix it up with this. And all I'm going to do is take off some of this extra here of this. This is how I do it. If I'm using multiple days, I just remove like this, right up like this, and then I've got a clean palette right to start with. Try not to get any of this on you, and we'll try to stay as clean as possible here. And what I'm going to do is I'll show you what I did was I'm going to put some white out here since I'm out of white. And I put out my white, okay? And then to the white, what I do is I add, if I can find there it is, my knife. I add about an equal, no more than an equal amount here of this gelled extender, okay? So what is this gel extender? What I do is I take this container here, and then I add some of the extender. And you can, a gel extender, a gel like this will last for quite a long time, so you can mix up quite a bit of it if you want. It is a fun way to paint because it makes the paint feel more like an oil. So I take this gel extender, I fill it up with some of the extender medium, and then I start to add some of the thickening agent. And again, all the links are down below, but I take my palette knife, I put in a little thickening agent, I then mix it all up, and then what I do is put the lid back on, and then I shake it up, and I shake it up and shake it up and shake it up, and then I stop. I then start to remove the lid back off. I see where I am, and then I'll go back and add some more of the thickening agent, and then put the lid back on and start shaking that up. And you want to approach it slowly, adding it to it, and then you'll notice it'll start to get thicker and thicker and thicker. And I do it all the way to my last time I have to kind of stir it all up, and it makes it nice and thick like this, a nice thick glob of it. So I want to add not quite 1-to-1, just a little bit less maybe, but you can go up to 1-to-1. And then I just mix this into the paints. This will thicken up your paint. And mix it up really well here. This will thicken up your paint here, and it will also extend its drying time to several hours. So some of you that watched, you should be watching all the videos, guys, because I show all these techniques to show you different things, to grow your technique. You don't always just paint what you like. If you want to learn how to paint, you got to paint all the different genres, because that's what teaches you all the different techniques. So here I'll just close this up, and I keep this, and I've had containers like this go for a year, 2 years without any kind of problem. And when you're all done, you can take little souffle cups like this and store all the extra paint when you're done into those, and they'll stay nice for several weeks, so that it's no problem. So now this is going to dry real slow. If you notice, it's quite a bit thicker, and it's going to feel it feels amazing. It feels just like an oil. And so watch that seascape painting I did. I did the whole palette here with those colors, and that will help you understand, some of the mixing. You could also do like I've done before. You could add the Matisse open medium to this, so you don't have to do this. This is just another way. And I want to show you through the Heritage all different kinds of ways to slow down these drying times. And like I said, these have been out for 24 hours, and I didn't put any covering or anything like that over that. They're going to stay fine. They usually stay fine for a couple days when you painted it after you've added the extender like this. So it works pretty nice. All right. So let's get into the painting here. I'm going to start by putting some blue, kind of a blue violet. So I'll take some of my blue and a little bit of my violet, and I'm going to add some extender to this here. Okay, and then I'll add some of my white, and so I don't use up too much of my white. Since I've added extender there and I want this kind of thin, I can just use regular white here with this, because it's going to stay wet anyway. But and I just don't like wasting up all of my mixed colors sometimes. So here's a nice light color. I want to, when you look at this, you always have these, and these are, you can download, again, the links are in the video description. And my value there is about an 8 to a 9. And right there I'm about an 8, which means, and it will dry acrylics dry just a touch darker, so I could have just a touch more light. Go up about 10%. And this will give us a nice start here to him. And since I've added so much white, this color will be opaque. So I want to, you can just come back and just white down a little bit until you can see your drawing here. I'll put a little bit more extender into this here, and we'll come right up. Now, I like to work these all different kinds of ways, and I got this color here a little bit too mixed. It's a little bit too even for the way I like it, so I'll be adding some other colors into it here. But I'm going to carry this right on down here, and we'll put some right up over here. Small movements. This is my big 2-inch brush, and you know, what I like to normally lay colors in with. And then I'll just move some of this around with my paper towel, wipe some back just a bit so I don't lose my drawing, so I can just lightly see my drawing, and that'll be fine. Now, you know, with the palette knife and stuff, you know, I showed you all different kinds of ways that you can vary color. Let's take a little bit of blue and blue violet here, maybe even gray this with a bit of our burnt sienna here. So a little bit of the two colors here, the violet, a little bit of the blue here, and gray this down with a little bit of burnt sienna. You can see how that grays this down. This makes lovely, and you can use your knife like I showed you in the other video, or we can use some of this just, and you barely see it here, but we want to get some gray variations here. And I'm going to softly put some mountains back up here too, but I want to add some of this atmosphere to the painting. And so we'll grab a little bit of that, a little bit of that. And sometimes if that feels a little thick, I'll just grab let's just grab a little bit of the extender with that. Push that off to the side. This has because it's been sitting out, you know, all day here, it has just a slight skin, and you can just remix it back up and get that. And anytime if it gets too thick for you, just add, all you have to do is just add, say you left it out too long or whatever it is, just add a little bit of regular extender to it and whip it up here, just like this. Because I've let these sit out for a day here. So I can just whip them up here with that extender, and they're right back to the painting consistency that I like. Matter of fact, we'll just grab some of that, set that there so we don't waste color too much. And we'll add some of these other soft here values back through here. Just some of this movement and stuff back here. And I'm going to put a soft mountain or so, I think, back here. Yes, the original there is slightly more violet. So let's get it just slightly more violet. Soft. Soft, soft, soft. Let's add a little extender to that. Just work some of that through here. And it's just going to be the atmosphere to it. That's all. Well, that didn't go up well. Great. Add a little bit. And I'll move this through here. Don't lose your drawing. Just push. And you can also, if you start to lose some of your drawing, just take a little water with it and it'll take it back here. So we'll just add some of that movement. I want to keep it soft for right now. We'll come back in there. I'll just rinse that brush real quick. Drop it in some water. And we'll come back and we'll add some more, because I'm going to put like the very soft little bit here of the mountain. But first what I want to do is put some of his colors in so I can get a good idea about where we're going to go. So sometimes I'll just push this through. And, you know, using the knife, especially after yesterday, I just, you know, painting that seascape just reminded me just how much I love painting with the knife, you know, and getting some of those loose colors with the knife. That's just so wonderful, because that knife just does such a beautiful job of it, and of just adding interest and stuff to your painting. All right, now let's go in and let's block in some of these colors. He's mainly a gray to burnt sienna, so we'll start out with some of our burnt sienna, and I'll thin this just with a little bit more extender here. We're going to gray him up. Burnt sienna and blue is a beautiful gray. I use burnt sienna and green many times, but he's more based in blue. And sometimes I'll take, like this is the edge of my photo, and I'll take and I'll look at the color, and I'll look at that color on him, and you can see that's pretty much his color. That's a good one to start. So this, I'm just going to leave some of this right up here like this. That's going to be his main base color. I want to make it just a touch darker here. And I'll vary this color. Sometimes I'll add some violets and greens to it, so this color changes a little bit. So see here, violet and green is a beautiful a cooler shadow color, maybe a little bit of blue. This makes a deeper shadow color that we have here. And I'm going to come in here. Now this is what is this? This is a number 8 Fusion Flat. And I'm going to come in here and see, this is what I like. See how a little bit of that burnt sienna came out of there? Because it's not super mixed up real well. And I like that kind of stuff to happen. I like when I'm painting like this, especially the marks. This is the deep shadow on his chest. And so I like these marks here to carry or to express some different colors as I'm putting them on. And that adds more interest. Try to find, this right here is a shadow coming down. Try to find some good calligraphy on him. There'll be this one that's going to come right in here. And maybe a bit of burnt sienna into that as well. There'll be just a touch lighter of a gray into that shadow here. Maybe even a touch more violet here. Nice cool kind of a shadow here, down up underneath here on the back of his leg here. Kind of follow the contours. I'm going to thin that. It strokes beautifully, but it's just a little thick because I'm used to painting with acrylics. So I'll just add a little bit of extender to it. I'm going to follow down. Let's change that color a bit. Try not to stroke too long with one color. Change the color. This is going to follow. Now see, I'm pulling down slightly and out because I'm kind of reading his fur, how his fur is moving in his body, and that's what I want to do. Let's lighten this back up again. Follow his belly here. Down the barrel of his body here. Down. Good shadow color. A little bit of that shadow color here onto his back. And again, we'll vary some of this. Vary the color. Here's a darker line here for his leg. So the light's coming in here from the upper right and hitting. You can see some cast shadows. Here's a nice dark one. So this is slightly green. I'm going to add a little bit more of the red violet and maybe a touch of the blue here. And let's get this darker, slightly different shadow. So I like to start out with, and this is, I come from Premier Coup, which is, I use those techniques when I paint portraits and stuff. And I start with shadows and work through to the lights. That's where I like to go. And so that's how I've been trained with painting it, and that's, but you can start out with lights and go the other way as well. Let's put just a bit of this. This is pulling down onto his main part of the flat part of his head that mule deer has. There we go. And just some lines here, just quick little lines of some of these shadows here. And I'll just use the corners and edges of the brush here so that each mark is a little different here. And put in some of those deeper shadows there. We'll do the horns separately. A little bit. Let's lighten some of this up. And we will go a little more burnt sienna, maybe a little green here. Slightly different. That's my blues. You can see the blue and the green are very, very close to each other. And it's going to make a nice contour or a contrast here for him. So this is called this is the part of the painting in Premier Coup that's called poster block painting in. And so I'm block painting in. Now I'm just a little green and that's just a little more violet. So let's head back up over and grab just a little bit of our blues, our lights, and we'll head back to that kind of a tone right in here and just add it in. Just add a few marks in. And this is what makes a beautiful painting in the end, is how many times you've expressed these marks, how many times you change these colors a little bit. So now what I'm going to do is come halfway between here and here. It's called a halftone. And I'll push the halftone in. And so I looked at my light color, my dark color, and I came right up here real close between the two, and I push in what is called the halftone, which, as you can see, I don't have to do much blending when I put that halftone on like that, because it's right in between the two. Now let's add just a little bit more of blue and burnt sienna here. A little bit more blue here. And right about in there. It's a good color. And we'll take a look. Might be just a touch dark. Let's vary this. Let's add a little yellow and a little white to that. So it's a little different tone, a little warmer, and pull in like that. So we'll look for that, that's going to be this mark here. You can see it can go a little bit lighter, looking at that across the way. So I just add a touch of white here, and I'm going to put a smaller mark right in here. And I don't worry, and as a matter of fact, I don't want to make it too smooth or anything right now. So you can finish it off like this, poster block it in, or you can go through all the way around with your midtones and finish it that way. I'm going to thin this just a bit, and let's just put some of this shadow up and around his back. That's a pretty good color, slightly greenish there. Pretty good color. So his is the other one there. If you look real close, it's just a little bit more red. And when I'm painting like this, I can see those differences, but I don't always feel like I have to hit it perfectly, if that makes sense. I don't feel like I have to hit it perfectly. So if I add just a little burnt sienna here, and just come back through, don't take out all the other original tone, just come back through, I'll add more interest down into that tone. Let's lighten this up, okay? Maybe a touch of yellow. As you get lighter, sometimes you get warmer. That's my original color right there, so we'll head into some of that. Let's just pull some of this down. Now there's a shadow there that I don't have that I need to get in. Let's just lighten up some of this area there. So now if I want to pull down and soften that, I take some of this that I did that original shadow there with, some of this. Let's just come right over here. And I create that halftone, and I stroke through with that halftone, and you see it immediately softens out. So that works. I can have a tiny bit more light, maybe a bit more yellow into that. Now, one of the things that an artist will do, and I'll go through like this and come really close to my colors, but then what I'm going to do is I'm going to, let's just mix up some more of this beautiful grayish color. Burnt sienna and blue, and we'll leave it slightly reddish here, so just not quite as much blue, and we'll use this right in here because that's real close to his coloring here, right down through here. And so what an artist will do, like I was just started to say, is we will come in and we will effect some change. We will extend, or we will take our colors a little bit to the extreme, if that makes sense. In other words, we will brighten some, tone some, make some differences in the coloring so that we add more interest to our subject than what it might just be. So, and I like to do that. So, but first I start out pretty close, and then I look at expanding the colors to get a better look to them. So here I'm going to put a little lighter, that warmer. Here, let's put this little band in that is a little lighter and warmer here. That's pretty good. We'll make sure we keep that little darker, a little bit of the dark tone here, right down this part of his belly here. There we go. So just a bit of that's looking pretty good. Get a bit more burnt sienna and some of this dark. Let's come down right at that angle. Let's look for some of that right in here. And I'll add just a touch of extender when I feel that the color is not moving as well. And see, I'm used to painting acrylics, and so I like my colors to move. But if you're used to, little stiffer colors, you don't have to add that extender. I'm adding that extender just to make my colors move. So now we'll warm up yellow, a little burnt sienna here, a little bit of white. So this is our initial blocking in of the colors here. That could go a little bit lighter. Hope you see that. A little bit lighter here. And right down, let's just push some of that color in there. Okay. A little bit more white, slightly grayed yellow here. So I'll add some of his body color to it. Let's drop that in. And again, this is our first look. We'll be adding more to him. Okay. We can go a bit lighter. So let's just add some of that here. You can push your finger sometimes, get some of those colors here. Let's grab a bit of light right here. A bit of that warmer yellow burnt sienna again, right in here. And again, I don't always mix it up real well, so I'll get some variation as I start to stroke some of that in there. Bring in just a bit of that light there, and little colors, a little bit here, a little more yellow. Let's just block that in there. That's looking good. Grab some of these yellows. In other words, don't worry about getting too precise. Sometimes I start to slide in to start to get the color a little bit too precise, and this is the underpainting, so we don't have to worry that much about it. This is the underpainting. But when you're painting with this with this extender into the colors like we are, you don't have to worry too much about the color drying here on your palette. If you can see, it's staying just super wet, and this is the second day these colors have been out, so which is pretty good, for acrylics. This is pretty good. So let's get back with a little more blue, burnt sienna, right up here, a little deeper dark, a little more burnt sienna. You can also make a beautiful gray with that blue and a little bit of red. So that works as well. Let's just get that dark in there. Maybe a little more burnt sienna on the edge. This is where I will start to, manipulate some of those tones. I see a bit of the yellow into that pulling across here. That's where he starts to get a little bit more pretty, and maybe a little bit of light color right in there. A little bit. Whip it up sometimes if you're going to put a tone on. Whip it on your palette, especially as your colors start getting thick, and then they'll flow better for you. And I could use a touch more yellow, white. So if you've kept the colors out on your palette for a day or so, like I have here, it might be a good idea to come through and kind of whip them up with some extender. But I haven't done nothing to these colors since I painted that seascape yesterday, which is kind of fun. So let's take a little burnt sienna. Let's add a little bit more color back there, a little bit softer. Some markings of the shadows, just pulling through that, leaving some of the, and on an edge, sometimes I like to just take the edge off so I get those soft, lost, receding edges. So I like that sometimes, so you can do that as well. Let's see that tone in there. And again, what you can do is that tone's going to be slightly yellowish. So I take some of my gray and just take the edge of your paper, like I've showed you in other things. and come in there and see where you are. So I'm a little bit more blue, just very close, but I could be I might just go ahead and use that one. It's close enough, I think. We'll drop some of that in here. Boom, that'll come up right up into there, right up into this one. Now, you can just push with your finger since everything here is wet. And I like to do that to blur those tones together slightly. I like to do that sometimes. And we can come with a slightly different gray tone that is going to be a half tone right in between this one and this one. And so basically you take this gray tone over, add just a little bit of this one to it, and you have a nice half tone that you can pull across here and start that other across motion there that you see on him. Maybe a touch more of our grayed burnt sienna and blue here, right up there like that. So you can see, you can start getting some of those tones in there. See, that's what I'm looking for. Let's get that lighter warm tone right up here by his neck, which is what the mule deer and the white tails and stuff like that have. This little light band right here. And let's put a touch, let's go up towards his face here too. Let's put a bit of that in, right up there. And we might want to just vary this edge. Just run it just right into the edge there. So you destroy that edge. See, I didn't have a sharp edge right there. We'll go to a smaller brush and paint that up there, but let's put some of this light right down here. That's pretty close, could have a little gray in it. So you can see I just moved my brush through some of those different grays on my palette and pull this across. So here I want some of this gray and stuff, and I want to pull down so I get that feeling of his neck right there. And he has a little more light. Let's get some of this light, another little light spot right there. So you see we can get him pretty close, not perfect, but pretty darn close, coming through like this. Let's add just a touch of extender here. So loosen that up so I can do almost a bit of a drawing stroke. Let's lighten that too. A little bit of warmer yellow and some burnt sienna here. Let's pull this mark down, which is that main shoulder muscle there, and let that just kind of fade into that one. Follow your calligraphy, good brush calligraphy, so you kind of read what's happening there. A little more burnt sienna on this edge right here, right there, and then a little bit lighter here of this gray right up in here, forming this muscle here. And see that. Let's go just a touch lighter, because remember he's gonna, acrylics dry down, so you have to, let's build this up a bit. And it will be better here in just a bit for me to switch to a smaller brush and get a smaller brush is going to give me increased calligraphy or marks, brush marks, and I want to make sure I capture those. Let's go with a little gray back in here just to soften that right there. There we go. So you can see it's just building him there. Now, he's a little more reddish right down here than what I have, so that's something I have to look at. Do I like him or should I change him? And I'll be adding some more tones. So, and that's easy to change. All of that is easy to change. Let's get a little bit of that light bit of here again. Right there. I'm going to accentuate that a little more than what he is on his, just for interest. And then we'll go up here and paint. Let's put some more light coming right down his front here. Maybe some more increased light again here. There we go. A little bit more, a little heavier. But this is kind of a big brush to get some of this nice calligraphy, so I'm going to have to change it in a minute here. But we can do that. here, down. Let's push a little bit right in here. This is all just so wet. So you have to be, when you're working with those of you that are not, haven't worked a whole lot with wet acrylics like this, you have to be careful not to stroke something too many times, because what'll happen is they will blend and all become one color, okay? And normally acrylic artists, we don't have to worry about that too much. Well, now that we're painting wet into wet, pure alla prima, wet into wet, we have to worry about that. So let's keep that in mind. Let's get a bit of a lighter reddish color. He has his belly coming down like this. And so that's just a little bit light. I need it a touch bluer. Blue and the gray here. So let's just pull some of that through that other color. Just one or two strokes. Leave some of that calligraphy there. Okay. And let's go just a touch, maybe blue and violet into that. A little bit of violet for this shadow right here. And this is a point where, you know, we might accentuate the shadows just a touch and stuff, where we'll start to, we could pretty much match these tones with this palette pretty easy. But I'm going to want to vary some of it as well for just a little bit of difference. So let's grab some burnt sienna right with that. See, I just slightly changed the tones up. I love the burnt sienna showing up into some of the shadows because that just adds so much here. That nice, warm, dark shadow of the burnt sienna coming in just adds so much. Let's get a little darker here. Burnt sienna, blue. Nice deep dark. We're going to need this for the horns anyway. Here, and restate some of this nice dark right through here. That's good. And now I'll go up a little warmer, burnt sienna. Take that up. There we go. There, like that. Another little darker mark of dark burnt sienna. Let's restate that right in there. That nice dark on him right there. That's pretty good. A little darker towards the burnt sienna again. Let's shift some of this shadow. That's just a little too blue. You can see the difference. Just a little too blue. A little more burnt sienna into that. There we go. And when I run my thumb like that, and what I'm doing is taking off some of the color so that my next color lays in there a little easier. So sometimes I'll run my thumb or my finger over it to soften it, to blend it. Sometimes I will run my finger through it to remove some of the color off the surface so I can come back in with a slightly different color. So you just remove some of it. Let's round up. Let's get some of this rounding up here. Some of this tone rounds up his barrel of his body there. Maybe a little bit more dark. Some of this dark here. Right in there. There we go. That looks pretty good. Right in there. Okay. And he'll have a few marks of it here up by the top of his hip, which they get a little sunken depression there sometimes. Let's just blur that out there, like that. Yeah, and little marks, what I always call the sparks of shadows and lights through there. So that goes pretty good. Let's push that brush down, put that brush down for a minute, and we'll go over, and sometimes I'll use this. This is a little number 6 Fusion Filbert. And I like to, if I'm going to do any painting and drawing, I like to go to a filbert because they hold, you can use the corner, like right in through here, he's going to have this mark that comes down that sets his his side of his jaw, and then here the lower part of his jaw here, and of that shadow that's going to be there. Okay, a little bit bluish, slightly light, so a little bit of light with that. Slightly bluish is this cast shadow right here. So let's just push that down right in there. And it's a little big, but that's okay. And let's take some of this dark. And when I start to work detail, this is when I start to rest my hand. So let's work some of this dark. And see, I use just the tip of this brush, and I start to draw just a touch here. Let's get that line there for his mouth. Here, they have a nice little dark right on the corner of their mouth that comes right down here, that goes up against the white of their lower lip there. We'll just blur that off a bit. A little more blue, sometimes a nice dark violet color here for the nostril that comes in here. You won't see it too much. It's really, but it'll just put that in there. Let's lighten up just a bit of the gray and pull the front plane of his nose down. Okay, this is where I'll be, painting this area several times to get some of that interest, and I'll go to a small brush as well. I'm going to take a more light right with some of this white, right with this gray, lighten this up right here. And this is what I'll use to pull down slightly here. Well, there's quite a bit of paint there, so it's hard for this detail to stick. So I'll just take my finger and take some of that off. You could also loosen up the acrylics or pick up quite a bit like I'm just doing right now and laying it right in. Light pressure, just lay it right in. And let's go a little bit more light here. And we'll just lay that right in. Boom, right like that. And that's good. Maybe a little bit of the grayish kind of color here. Down this side here. Just kind of blur that just a touch here. So I'll do some more detailing and stuff on him, but that starts to get him. Let's go a little bit reddish gray right in here. And you can always just come up and check your tone. That's why it's real nice to have some of this around here. Check your tone here. And we'll leave that light spot over his eye. And we'll push some of this in. Now see, some of this is gonna, we're gonna, add little tiny touches, quite a few of them. So that's what's gonna really start to make the difference on here. Small workings of the tone, which we have yet to do. So we're gonna work some small areas of the tone here. That could be just a touch lighter. So let's model that. And pull that down just a touch lighter there. Okay. Touch lighter as it comes up around his ears right up here. That's just a bit too light. A little bit of yellow, a little bit of gray here. And just kind of, and see, we're not going to be able to get all the detail this first time through. So we put on, it's almost like a base color. And then we'll come in and work some more colors in there. Some smaller strokes, smaller marks, smaller details to what he's doing here. And take our time and paint him up. Let's get a little bit of light right in there. Just take a little bit of burnt sienna and dark, slightly different color, halftone. Push that in, right in there like that. A little bit more dark. Right across his top, between his horns, and pull down. I love painting the animals because the fur can help you pick out the calligraphy, how you want to stroke him. And it's so very important. That calligraphy is so very important. Okay, let's go into some blue here, some violet, real dark. Sometimes I add a little green to that, but this is going to make a very, very dark color. Sometimes I make it more gray, just blue and red. Okay, just the blue and the red. Here, nice dark color. Let's come right in here and touch into what is going to be his eye. A little bit over here, just a touch. Back up over there, okay? And usually when I'm painting the deer and birds and everything, I like a little touch of the sienna. Now, that's a pretty good sized brush to do that. I'm going to go down to a smaller little filbert. Grab some sienna. And I do like to push sienna, burnt sienna, around into those eyes to cast a little bit of the warmth. And I tend to make them a bit big, and then I'll take some lighter color here and I'll paint them down into position. So he will come down into position here with some of the lights as that grabs. And I drop my stick. I grab some of the little bit of lights, this light gray here. I'll push that right up into there to make that or build that socket a little lighter, not quite as light, right up over the upper lid there and down there. And it's just a matter of finding the tones and painting, deer, elk, this where you have a large variety of tone really helps you start to find tones and see tones here. A little bit of this light right around the top here of his nose. Here. Here we go. And a little bit right here on the corner of his mouth. There. Okay. Find some of those medium tones, medium to darks right there. And again, you don't have to be exactly perfect. This is going to be a pull down right here on that side. That's going to help generate the side of his nose there. Okay. And let's take a half tone. So not quite as light, maybe a little bit of that burnt sienna. Got a little fuzzy there. And let's pull down into that half tone. See, that half tone is halfway between that light and that dark, and it softens that exchange right there on that side. He also has a pretty good, almost like the tear duct part of his eye, pulling down here, right down like that, okay? And I'll come back and see, I always do things a little bigger, and then I paint it down on both sides here. Tapping through that a bit. That could be and see, once you start getting into, my eye starts to focus in on detail. So when I started him out, I'm starting out real big. And then as I get going and I'm coming up here, my eye starts to focus in on detail, seeing little details of the tones and the direction of the tones. So here I'm looking at that direction. It actually pulls down right here. That's not laying off real good. So I'm going to just lightly tap it like this and just leave that mark like that. So it, nice thick. But see, I came up that way because I'm kind of reading it up that way. And I kind of read this one coming down here, pulling down slightly. So we'll just be a little careful there. Yeah, that's fine. A little bit of curvature there. And this, so you can see I work these tones. There we go. Up like that. Now I took out probably a little too much white, so I get the opportunity to put some of it back in. But I don't want to make it too smooth. And this is where I start looking for other little marks, like the upper lid mark here that's a little bit lighter here. and I start to, my vision is smalling down, if that makes sense. I'm starting to look at smaller little marks of color here and where they're going to go. A little bit of the shadow right back here. Here. There's a nice pull down of this gray right from that, right down that side there. That kind of makes that side, but we need to get some light in there as well. Let's put some of that, and I'll just add, if it starts to tack up a little bit, just add a little extender and it loosens it up. Let's add some of this right back inside the ear here. Little mark up here by the tip. Let's go a little lighter with some of this color. We go, just touch that in and through. Make that fluffy ear there. Okay, and a little bit more light right here. And see, I hold my brush sometimes flat and just lay the mark on. That's when I really like it, is when I just lay that mark on like that. And I think it works the best. Let's just tap some of that light around. The tapping will make it look just a touch fluffy. I just don't tap, I tap and pull, just a tiny little pull. And that'll make it look a little more fluffy for him there. And boom. So we'll go through like that. And we'll pull this down to push that movement of the ear. So I'm looking for that pulling down there. See? There, we got that. That looks pretty good. Now, see what I do. Now, see, he needs to have some more fixing up, kind of. Like, he needs to have some of this widened out across here. And now I'm with my small brush. I can do that fairly easy. But I don't want to lose all my shadows and stuff, so I'll come back in and do that. And we have to put his other ear on a little bit more gray here, lighter and gray. So I try, and there's more yellow inside that ear, so let's just lighten with a little bit of yellow here and push that in. Learning to see the color that you're looking at. But use that little paper technique. For you new painters, use that little paper technique of touching into that corner there with the paper. Now, and I will add some more light, stroking through. This is where I'll, start working some of these colors a little differently now. A little different, slightly different mark. Sometimes I'll set it on and push up and down so that I get a different look to the mark. And so it's not just a tap or a movement. Not all wildlife painters do that. I like to do it because this is some of the stuff I do on flowers and stuff. So that's why I'm always after you guys to paint different genre. Paint different genre so that, because you can take one technique that you use on something right into another painting. And it works. So that's why I paint so many different things. So I have there's, like slight differences that you have here on him. Of the, like burnt sienna, a little bit more of that dark burnt sienna blue right in there, pulling down, right in there. Maybe this pulls in just a bit, a little bit more flat right there on him. I like that real deep dark coming right over the arch of his eye there. That looks pretty nice. And it's back into a little bit of light, kind of a 45-degree angle mark here, which causes his head to tilt slightly. Do you see that? And that mark right over the eye here. And a little bit more of a gray. So see, I'm just reading some of these marks. That softens. that comes in that way. Here we go. And so I just read those marks. Now, so what I'm going to do is exactly the same thing I did here before. Before I go out into his horns and some of the back here, I'm going to go through. He's pretty close. He could be a little bit more red and a little bit more color. So I'm going to go back to some of my big brush, maybe slightly smaller, and I'm going to rework this again, working in some of the details here so we don't take up too much time. So we're almost at an hour here, and so we don't take up too much time. I'm going to repeat it through. And give me a few minutes. I'll show you a few clips along the way, and then I'll come back and we'll paint his horns and paint some of those mountains back there and stuff like that, okay? I'll give you an idea. But we're just going to follow the same thing, doing him again, building up more color and maybe even a little texture, okay? All right, I'll see you in a few minutes. Hi everyone, welcome back. Well, I got him a little closer and I blurred some of this back edge here. He could still be a little bit more burnt sienna, but overall I'm kind of liking the way he is. I put some more detail in there, and I put a little tiny catch light, which is just a light gray from here, just a little tiny bit of it right up there. Let's go in, let's take our big brush and let's kind of simulate some mountains back up here. Little extender. A little bit of our grays, some of our blues, light blues and grays. Let's just see. I want to give kind of the feeling here, and I do want it not quite so violet, a little bit violet, just not quite so violet. Let's just kind of simulate some mountain hills kind of back here, way back into the distance here. So we're just going to be just kind of shadowy colors here, and then we'll put in some light and shadow. Now, so light is when it's coming here, it's coming right here from the kind of the front part of him here. So we'll keep that in mind. But I want this to go kind of horizontal through here. This is just going to be very impressionistic. More than anything else, just barely there. Maybe a little bit of snow back here, you know, onto them. You know, just a idea, just a whisper of an idea of some of these mountains back here. Just to say you did it more than anything else. Let's put a little bit violet in there. A little bit of our blues and violets here. And to say we did it, a little bit of color, a little different color here. And and that'll be a good color for the horns basically here to pop up off of. Yeah, like that. Just a little bit there, just an impression there, just an impression. And we could soften up some blurry little clouds up there. You know, we could take some of this extender, and again, just very soft. More, and you know me, I like to do clouds too with the knives, because they just, it smears around just so nice. There, just the idea. And we can add more, but first we'll just put on a bit. We could, you know, once we get his horns on and stuff, then we can look at maybe adding another little impression of them here. And maybe, and I do like doing those mountains also with the knife, but maybe a little bit of this color here, just little, barely there. You gotta be, we have to be careful so that we're just barely there with this, because I don't want it to take over the painting here at all. Just barely there. Some of those back. And so see, as I'm putting on these darks, that's going to start bringing them forward. So got to be a little careful. Here we go. Just little bits. Little angles, differences. That's kind of neat. Okay, and we'll look at that again here when we put some of the foreground in. Let's go up into his horns here, and again we'll go blue and burnt sienna here, burnt sienna, some white. Get a nice kind of a burnt sienna kind of color here. Let's start to drop in just the main part of the horns, and I'm going to let some of the edges fracture here. Fracture means that it is not perfect. You know, you don't draw on a perfect edge here. And I've lost some of his horn, so I'll just kind of wing it here. And the idea of it here, let's see, this is going to go up there. This one we want to come right back in here, pretty close there. And a couple of little ones off here. Little one there, don't breathe. So we do this, let me get my stick here. And we'll come back in. Right up here. Let that come right in there. There we go. And there's a little one right in between here. Just a little one. There. That'll do. And over to the other side here. This one, don't breathe. And I'm going to let some of it go atmospheric, so I'm letting it kind of go right into the colors of the mountain and stuff here. So I'm not worried about getting it absolutely perfect or a, you know, a solid coat on it by any means. Here. And just let that edge just fracture there a bit. Like that. Little bits, little. There we go. And then it's just a matter of working light and shadow here. You've seen me do this on other elk and deer and stuff. It's just a matter of working light and shadow. So let's come up here. Boy, I dropped that all right in there. Let's, there's the light. Let's get more of the blue and green and burnt sienna as our shadow here. And start here, nice deep shadow. Vary the colors, but let's get some shadow here. Nice paint. This is nice cast shadow on this side right over here. Right up there like that. And usually the horns, when I do the horns like this, the antlers and stuff, I will do them several times back and forth with the light and shadow, kind of like what I do on the body, because I love to paint the horns, and I like the horns to really pop off of the painting, you know, to be a major statement of the painting here. So I like to do them, and so I do them several times, and you'll see I'll do a drawing stroke here of shadow, and I use the flat of the brush so I get some fractured edges there. And on that one, it's the shadows across a little bit too far, so that's okay. I'm just going to take some light here and just come right over that. And see, I turn and twist my brush so I get different feels to the surface there. And let's take a little light yellow right into some of that color and hit a little highlight. So I'll work it just like this. You see, as I build these horns, and you'll get some light coming from the tip. Now sometimes when you put these tips, these lights out here, they don't want to stick if you have a lot of paint on there, and if you're not used to that. And that's the beauty of the acrylics. We can just let it dry a few minutes. Let it tack up, and then you can get back in there and get some of those lights in where you want. here. We go. But I do like this light dark contrast that comes onto the horns. And so sometimes I will, you know, accentuate the shadows a little bit more than shadows and lights, a little bit more than what you see in the actual horn, just to get that interest. I like that. And so I put these grays, and then you're going to see the more of the burnt sienna kind of grays, so a little more burnt sienna here into some of these lights, into some of these colors. A little bit more reddish burnt sienna will come in as well. And that's what makes them all pretty, is you get all the different tones in there. Take your time and work it and get the different tones. So I'll go through and do just that, put in some of these darks. And you know, if you can't get the light to show up, flip over and put some darks on. The horns, the antlers and the horns here can be light or dark. So just put some of those darks on. Won't hurt anything. Here we go. Push that in there. That's going pretty good. It could have that light that hits it there. So I'll come down here, grab a little bit of light. This is a number 2 filbert that I'd like to use in detailing and stuff. So it's what I used on his face. Push that in. Right in there. Don't forget to tap that little ring right there. And work some of those details. Try not to set this on your wet painting, Dave. There we go. Little light tips, but sometimes those don't show up, so you just do it and you know it's not going to show up, but you do it anyway. But the dark, because our background's so light, the dark shows up really nice. And so you can do some of your shaping and your drawing right with your dark. Pull down this plane right there. Yeah, so I'll work on those antlers a few times, putting those in, but that gives you a good idea how I paint them back and forth. Look for the light and shadow, vary the tones. That's what makes them really pretty, is when you vary those tones. Let's put this little point of this one off here. There we go. And we'll drag some of that light down. There we go. Just like that. So I have more light to put on, more dark, do it again. You know, for me, it's easiest if I let these antlers kind of tack up again, you know, so I'll let them tack up. And you can see those mountains are just setting back there, kind of nice right now. But I'll let these antlers tack up a bit, and then I'll come back and hit them again with some more color. Back and forth with some more color and textures and stuff to really kind of pop them here. And I like this little 2 flat right like that, and just pulling it down because it gives kind of a granulated stroke, which, you know, makes the antlers look a little bit rough, which is what I like. So, and as I put that on there, I can see there's a few areas that I need to lighten up and fix up, but I'll do that with another layer. And don't breathe. There we go. A little bit of light right there. Now, so that's pretty good on him. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come down to the low edge here, and I'm just going to put on some big color, burnt sienna, greens, that makes it kind of tone, some yellow oxide. Let's put a little extender into this. Let's get some big tone color here, and burnt sienna, and let's look for some big tone, big shadows here. And I just use a brush here, just kind of scrub it up and put some of this on. Now a little bit more burnt sienna, a little too much green. And let's just put it in kind of wild here, like that. Okay, and you can follow these, but I use it for inspiration more than anything else, and I don't follow it exact. So just going to grab some of these grays, some of these other colors. And then we might have to put out some more yellow oxide here. Sometimes I do this also with a knife, just coming in like this. And because I like the variation. I've always liked the variation the knife gives to my colors. And so I do like that. Let's put a little yellow with that too. It gives a different kind of color. And working the knife, working the brush. I'll show you my fun brush here in just a minute. But you can see this knife just kind of gets some of those colors in there. And I want to take some of these grays, some of these colors here. And I want to just work these up. I'll put, and this is why I haven't quite finished his feet yet, so I'll push that. And let's just push some of this up. And of course we're going to go lighter. Yes, we're going to go lighter. Probably going to need a little more, and I can use just straight acrylic here. Yellow oxide. Just love that color. And we'll go some more white. Even when you have straight acrylic and add it with the white here, it works wet for quite a long time. So let's just work some of this. And I love the paper towel, the streaks that you get kind of with the paper towel. So I'll work some of this through like this, and then I'll put his feet back in. And there we go. Soften some of that big stuff back there. I just love the look of the paper towel and some of these acrylics when I do bushes and the prairie grass like this. I just like it. And then I'll use my other says it just makes kind of a nice wild kind of prairie grass. I'll grab a little more light here and just grab some of this here. Here, get some of that lighter look. Also, I have my fun brush. Now, this is my fun brush for doing, you've seen me use this on the westerns, and I just kind of bend it all out wild like this. And it is, it's made from a round brush that I took, one of our synthetic rounds, and I took it out there and hammered it flat, made like a little filbert, and then I spread the hairs out, and I spread the hairs all out, and then I cut some of them with the scissors, made just a real variation here to the brush, and I just used different edges of it here, and create the look of some of these marks of grasses. And you can do it light and dark here. Just some of the grass look here. So you can do it light and then make a few little dark marks and use different corners, turn it and stuff and make different corners there with it. You know, just, yeah, let's get some of the darker yellows in there as well here, because that helps. Take some of those shadows out there like that. And you could also use, you know, use your, you can use your liner brush to put a few in. I don't necessarily like to always use the liner brush, but it does work with some of them. So here's a few smaller little ones, little marks here. And just turn and use your brush, different angles. You know, give a few long ones. That's a little too big, but not too bad. Just pull through that a bit. Pull through a bit, softens them out. Do some different directions, different ways. You can layer them, put in some darks and then come back with some lights. You know, that just layers the colors. And let's go back with some lights. Hit a few more lights, little lights. Here, a little more white. Just model that in with your brush here. And just, you can take out some of that dark that I got a little heavy there with. Just add a few. You know, there's some artists that will do more of a flat brush, and I like that look too, but sometimes it's like too consistent. And this painting is small, so it's kind of nice to have some various grasses and stuff like that through the painting here. Now, more dark through here, and I do like that. So, and you know, there's all different kinds of ways you can add it, but there's a little bit more dark through there. So let's take a little burnt sienna and just add some, you know, just a corner of my other brush here. This will make it look a little different here. And it's really, really wet. So, and you start to build up color like this, it starts to get a little harder to get individual stems and stuff, because it starts to mix really easy. So light pressure, but then you know, you might have to let it tack up to get some of the final looks that you might like in there. You might have to let it tack up a bit and try that, you know, just, yeah. Now I'm going to lay in some horizontal ground as well, because it starts to get too vertical, and so I start to lay in a little horizontal ground, and he's got some of that horizontal ground there right in front of him, and maybe some of that light gray that's from his body would look great in the ground, because it'll carry some of that color down here into the ground, and then we'll work on putting his feet and stuff back up onto it here. Here we go. Get some of that light gray from his body down there, and we'll put some layers of this ground in here. And I do like my knife when I do this stuff as well here. So the knife, just see, it gives a more of a raggedy edge to it. Just kind of fun. And you know, in all the videos I show you all different kinds of techniques. So, you know, painting some of the landscapes, you know, learn how I, you know, do some of the techniques for the beach and stuff like that, because that helps, you know, that that the look of the beach helps, you know, gives you ideas for how to set the ground in and stuff like that. So, but most of this is just layers. You know, work these layers. So I'll put this on here, and maybe a bit more burnt sienna into that. A little different color. And I'll leave some of this, now some of this marks here. Some of those heavy marks right in there like that, because that's adding quite a bit of interest there. So we'll leave that. Let's grab a little more burnt sienna with that. Leave some of that. And then we'll push some of the, in just a second, we'll push some of the reeds and the grasses right over the top of this here. So we go back to our fun brush, a little bit of white and the yellow, and we'll push some areas of these light grasses right down and right over that. Some of those grays here. Pull some of this right down, right into that, sometimes a little bit right into the ground. Layers. We paint in layers, right? Now, if it blends too much, which can happen because everything is so wet, just let it dry a bit. There you go. And, yeah, see, working that, and then we can bring some of his leg and stuff here right back. Sometimes I just, you know, I let it... let the animal get covered up right there into the grasses. Then you don't have to paint hooves and all that stuff. But I'll bring this out just a bit. And let's bring this one out. Not quite that light. Bring some of this one out. Some of that one. Let's bring this light a bit more. And you can draw it back again with some of that tone, burnt sienna, a little burnt sienna, a little bit of blue, just a touch. Put that shadow line that kind of draws his leg out there. So you can just see his leg. Now, do you have to, you know, you can just tap a few little marks there and give him the impression of his hooves, his cloven hoof there, just the impression of it. And then put a few grasses over the top if you want. There, just the impression. There we go. And it's kind of fun, huh? Kind of fun. There we go. And yeah, let's darken this back one just a bit. There we go. Let's put a smaller little line right there. Just to say you did that. Could have a bit of the shadow. My chair's squeaky today. A little bit right here. Here we go. Yeah, just like that. And you can go to your liner brush, or what I'll do is I'll just take this and pull it out. I'll grab some of my light, maybe some of that Hansa Yellow and white. Okay, just some little light stuff here, right up into the front here. And you could do a lot more, but this is kind of a quick little painting, so we'll just layer a few little lights here, right like that. Final little lights. So I don't, you know, quick little paintings here, I don't get too wrapped up. You just want to give the impression of it and get out of there, you know. I could do a little bit more on that dirt. Here, and that would be good, I think. Few little light touches here to say, oh, there's grasses, the big prairie grass here. There, like that. That's pretty good. Few little, you know, spread it all out. Use just the little hairs that come out on the sides there to push that in. And that looks pretty good. Let's do a little more burnt sienna, the violets, blue, yellow, and light. Nice grays here. Dirty grays. A little bit more blue. Let's just tap some of that through. And it's very much burnt sienna in the photo. But let's just tap a few. There. Gives him a... Let's just pull a few lights. There. Just like a little bit of dirt. And, now you can put some darks and stuff in there too, but I think that looks pretty good here. And I'll add some smaller little additional lights, maybe a few little touches right up over his leg there. Just little light highlights here, right up here. A few little there, like that. That's pretty good. Now, one of the things I like to do, like when you see me paint birds and stuff like that, I like to look along to the face and make sure that everything I'm doing right around the face is going to help him pop forward. And so I can work that a bit of violet. And so in other words, I smooth it out a little bit right around the face, which helps him pop forward just a bit. Let's go a little bit more blue, a little bit lighter here. Just a touch more violet maybe. We'll see where we are here, but we got to get up around an 8 or a 9. That's where we were to begin with, right? So let's see where we are here. It's a little bit blue, not bad, but a little bit blue. So let's come over here away from our blue, maybe gray it up just a bit, a little bit of our grays. And let's see this in here. Let's take some of that down and off. So this, what this clarity of color, that's the shadow side. Let's not do that. This clarity of color right through here, see, helps him and, you know, really pop his face forward, which is something I like to do. And so we'll see, I like that it helps you, the viewer, center up right in here and right into his face. And I'll take even just a touch more violet. Let's do this side over here. See how that it gets rid of just a few of the streaks, puts on a little more paint, and it's the paint that pops him forward. That's what does it. Paint adds interest. So you want more interest, you use more paint. but I want to soften it out as it comes around, you know, off of him there. And so this strike of paint will help him come way forward, see? And I'll smooth that just by using that same color right here a bit. It takes away just a touch of the streaks in that area. They'll come back, you know, we'll bring them back right in here. But right around his face, it gets nice and clear. And so some of that definition, you can see some of that. Let's take a little bit of this. Drag the feeling of the mountains down just a bit here. Right down into maybe a touch more of the violet here. A little bit more violet. Some of that feeling. Blues, violets. Here. There we go. Just tap that around up in there. That'll give a little bit of interest. So I still have to do some of his horns. I'm going to let those dry up and then just repeat everything a little bit here. And then I'll look to see if I need to add anything more to some of these mountains for a bit more interest, but I don't think so. I think just a few brush marks like this. The brush marks add so much to the painting here. And so that will just give that, like these are distant mountains, a little bit of snow or something on them. And we don't need that much. You could warm it up. You know, I'd like he sits up there, I like him sitting with the warmth here. This one's a little bit more blue, but I like the violet kind of tones that I have going in there on this one. So I think I'll leave that. Just to idea some mountain snow. Just, you know, move your brush around like that, and it will give the impression. That's all we want is an impression. We don't want to paint it too much that it detracts from the painting, you know, from our deer. So you just slowly kind of bring it in, adding a little bit more light maybe here. But don't get too wild and crazy, because it'll start bringing everything forward, and we don't want to do that. We could make them more jagged here too. Here, there, just the idea. So that just kind of pretty there like that, and I could take some of this color, which is a good thing, travel it down, put a few marks of it right down in here. You know, this blue and some of this mountain color right down in here. You know, marks like that just help, you know, with stuff. But it's really, really wet there, so hard to lay some of that stuff on. But, you know, you can do it. You can do it with the, you know, lay a few little lights right after you make those marks. Always lay a few little grasses right over to, I always call it sinking the ground, the grasses into the ground and stuff there. So that helps you with that. But I will work his antlers one more time there and bring it up. But I'm going to let those tack up just a bit, and then I'll work those again, maybe some of those little edges and stuff. And he's still, everything is still real wet from the original bit of the painting here. So, you know, that working with some of that, you know, some of you like the acrylics, some of you have problems moving the acrylics that they dry too fast. Well, you do have a way of mixing in some of this. And look at how little, really, I used a lot of white, but you know, all these colors here are still fantastic, and they've been out 2 days now, 2 complete painting days, because it is 3:45, so it's been out 2 complete, painted the other one yesterday morning, so it's been out 2 complete days. So, but yeah, it's up to you know, you have some really nice ways in which you can, you know, manipulate your colors here and slow down their drying times. There are ways with the new modern acrylics. Now, that's the other thing. I answered some questions, you know, on I'm so far behind on answering all your questions, and I'm sorry about that. But the I answered some today, and the, you know, the biggest question is, you know, well, my acrylics dry too fast. Guys, not all acrylics are the same. You have to remember that. Not all acrylics are the same. Heritage is a modern generation of acrylics. We made it, I guess it would be about 14 years ago, so it's relatively a young paint. And it's modern technology of being able to do some of this stuff. And we're able to do more things. And Deravan is doing more things that work right with ours, with the open medium and stuff like that. Fantastic company. And a green company, everything's non-toxic. So anyway, just some really good fun. So you're not going to be able to do what I do with all different brands of acrylics. Some of them are made, some of them that I made, you know, years ago were made specifically to dry very fast because, you know, people wanted to move on to another layer, you know, and was putting a little more light highlight through some of this. So that, you know, is different. You know, they're not all the same. That's the thing, is don't think that all acrylics are the same. They are very different. They're night and day. Some of the older ones cannot do any of this stuff because they're not made to extend their drying time. But some of the more modern ones can do this. So anyway, there you go. That gives you an idea. I have a few more little lights, and I do have to work his antlers again. But this is gives you a good idea there of that. You can just lightly drag over some of it. Once it starts to tack up a bit, you can lightly drag some colors over and give a softer effect or a little bit more look of the hair. But he's kind of fun. There you go. Okay. So you have the seascape one. If you haven't watched that one, watch that. If you haven't watched the other landscape ones that I did with some of the knife, you can do that. Now the landscape one, I used a different technique. The seascape, I mixed in this stuff. And then I do that on some of the florals. So there's all different kinds of ways, okay, to paint some of this stuff, to give it the feel of oils. And see, even all the way down to my original base coat when I started this is all wet. It's still all wet. And, you know, so, and we're, what, an hour and 40 minutes or so into this painting. So there you got it, okay? Don't forget to like and share. I really appreciate that. You know, give us a thumbs up on this video. Don't forget to subscribe, share it with your friends. We're going to have a big painting sale. Those of you that have been looking to collect some of my paintings, it's coming up at the end of this month in September at the JanssenArtGallery.com. We're going to have a big sale. And all of the paintings and stuff we sell are going to charity, to support our foundation and stuff that we do a lot of charitable work with. We give out scholarships and stuff like that. So you're giving out something that's going to help a lot of other starting artists and everything like that. So it's a good thing to do. So if you're looking to collect one of my paintings, watch the JanssenArtGallery.com. Watch that. It's coming up at the end of September of this year, and it'll be. We would really like if you can collect something, okay, so that it helps the foundation, and it helps move painting out, and it helps this channel as well, keeps this channel free. All of that goes to the funding of this channel also, on everything we do, so that we keep it all free for you, okay? All right. Thanks so much, guys. We really appreciate it, and I'll see you on the next one.